A quiet rancher's world turns upside down when a strong Apache woman appears after a broken saddle leaves him stranded. Witness how courage, trust, and respect forge an unbreakable bond in the heart of the 1880s frontier. Don't miss this emotional Wild West story. Subscribe now for more tales of bravery, love, and unforgettable moments. Let's get started. In the rolling plains of 1887 New Mexico, Eli Turner lived a life shaped by quiet routines and wide-open spaces. He rose before dawn, tended his horses, checked his fences, and rode the boundaries of his land without speaking to anyone unless absolutely necessary. People made him uneasy. Animals did not. Horses understood silence, and the land never demanded explanations. Eli believed that was enough, for a man who had learned early that words often failed. That afternoon, the sun hung heavy and merciless above him as he guided his horse along a familiar trail. The leather of his saddle creaked softly, a sound he trusted without question. Then in a sudden, violent snap, the saddle strap gave way. Eli felt the world tilt. He hit the ground hard, pain exploding through his ribs as the breath left his lungs in a sharp, helpless gasp. His horse reared and bolted, disappearing into the shimmering distance. Eli lay there staring at the sky, the blue blinding and endless. Every breath hurt. He tried to move his legs but stopped when pain shot through his side. Panic flickered briefly, then faded into resignation. He had always known the land could turn against him without warning. Out here, a broken strap could mean the end. He closed his eyes, listening to the wind move through the grass, wondering how long before the heat finished what the fall had started. Time passed slowly, sweat soaked his shirt, and his throat burned with thirst. Just when his thoughts began to blur, he heard something unexpected. Footsteps. Soft, measured, human. Eli forced his eyes open, half expecting a mirage. Instead, he saw a woman standing a few paces away, framed by mesquite trees, watching him carefully. She was Apache, her posture straight, her expression alert, but not afraid. She approached without haste, as if she had already decided he posed no threat. Kneeling beside him, she examined his injuries with practiced calm. Her hands were steady, confident. She offered him water from a small leather pouch, lifting his head just enough for him to drink. The cool liquid felt like life itself. Eli tried to thank her, but his voice refused to come. "You shouldn't move," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. There was no fear in her eyes, only focus. She didn't ask who he was or why he was there. She didn't accuse or hesitate. She simply acted, as though helping him was the most natural thing in the world. That, more than anything, surprised him. Once she was sure he could sit upright, she stood and scanned the land. Spotting his horse grazing some distance away, she moved, with quiet authority, retrieving it with practiced ease. Eli watched amazed as she calmed the animal and examined the broken saddle strap. From her satchel, she produced tools and leather strips, repairing the damage with skill born of experience. When she returned, she helped Eli to his feet, supporting his weight without complaint. Pain shot through him, but he managed to stay upright. She didn't rush him, didn't push him to speak. She seemed to understand that silence was his language. That understanding settled over him like shade on a scorching day. They stood there for a moment, the wind carrying dust across the plain. Eli realized that no one had looked at him this way in years, not as something broken or awkward, not as a man to be pitied or ignored. She saw him simply as he was, injured, yes, but still capable, still worthy of care. As she handed him the reins, their eyes met briefly. In that glance, Eli felt something shift deep inside him. It wasn't romance or gratitude alone. It was recognition. For the first time in a long while, the silence around him didn't feel empty. It felt shared. He mounted his horse slowly, guided by her steady presence beside him. The land was the same as it had been that morning, vast, quiet, unforgiving. But Eli knew something had changed. A broken saddle had brought him to the ground, but a stranger's strength had lifted him back up. And as they began walking toward the horizon together, Eli understood that this quiet encounter was not an ending. It was the beginning of a life he had never imagined for himself. Talahai walked beside Eli, as if the land itself recognized her. She moved with quiet confidence, eyes scanning the horizon, aware of every sound and shadow. Eli noticed how naturally she matched his pace, never rushing him, never slowing him down. He said little, offering only brief directions toward the ranch, but she didn't seem to mind. Silence followed them like a shared companion rather than an awkward space. When the ranch finally came into view, Eli felt an unexpected flicker of embarrassment. His home was simple, weathered wood, patched fences, and a life built more on necessity than comfort. Talahai studied it without judgment. To her it wasn't lacking, it was honest. She helped him dismount carefully, her grip firm but respectful, and guided him inside to rest before the pain worsened. She tended his bruises with practiced skill, cleaning scrapes and wrapping his ribs tightly enough to support, but not restrict. Eli tried to reach for his money pouch, but she stopped him with a small shake of her head. "Kindness isn't a trade," she said simply. The words struck him harder than the fall had. He wasn't used to help without cost. That night, Eli slept deeper than he had in years. When he woke, sunlight filtered through the window, and Talahai was already outside, mending a loose fence rail. She hadn't asked for permission. She had seen what needed doing and done it. Eli watched quietly, unsure what to say, unsure how to interrupt a rhythm that felt right. Over the next few days, she returned again and again. Sometimes she brought herbs to help his healing. Other times she worked alongside him, checking livestock, repairing broken boards, guiding a nervous calf back to its mother. She worked with a calm strength that never sought attention. Eli noticed how animals responded to her presence, how even the most skittish horse settled under her touch. He found himself talking more, though still sparingly, a sentence here, a quiet observation there. Talahai listened without impatience, as if every word mattered because it was chosen. She never filled his silences with noise. Instead, she let them breathe. In her company, Eli didn't feel pressured to be someone else. As days turned into weeks, something shifted within him. The ranch no longer felt like a place he hid from the world. It felt lived in, shared. Evenings were spent sitting on the porch, watching the sky change colors while the wind carried the scent of dust and sage. Sometimes they spoke. Often they didn't. Either way, the quiet felt full. Eli realized that where he had once used silence as armor, Talahai used it as strength. She faced the world directly, loss, hardship, and survival, without retreating. Watching her, he began to understand that being quiet didn't mean being weak. It meant choosing when to speak, when to act, and when to simply be present. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Eli finally voiced what had been forming in his chest. "You didn't have to keep coming back," he said softly. Talahai looked at him, her expression steady. "I chose to," she replied. No explanation followed. None was needed. That choice meant more to him than grand declarations ever could. It wasn't obligation or debt that kept her there. It was respect. And for the first time, Eli felt worthy of it. Not because he had changed, but because someone had seen him clearly and stayed anyway. The broken saddle that once left him helpless now felt like a distant memory. What remained was something far stronger than chance. Two lives meeting not in noise or urgency, but in patience and trust. In the quiet strength they shared, Eli understood that his life hadn't just been interrupted that day, it had been quiet